Hello and welcome to Dr. Joe's Health and Sanity Call. I'm Dr. Joe, a wellness expert and professional speaker who helps busy people stay healthy, sane, and productive. For more information of how I can help you and your organization, visit drjoe.com, drjo.com. Hello and welcome to today's Health and Sanity Call. I'm Dr. Joe, a registered dietitian who's been doing these calls for about 11 or 12 weeks now, and I have a confession to make. I hate to cook. I hate to cook. And people have a hard time with that. They're like, you're a registered dietitian and you don't like to cook? And actually, I looked deeper at it, and really what it is it's all about priorities, right? And there are some things I could do all day. I could go biking all day and out in the woods. I could hang out at the beach or at the pool. But I don't want to spend my time in the kitchen. And it's not just in the kitchen. You have to plan the menu. You have to go shopping, find the right thing. You have to prep it. You have to cook it. Then you have to clean up afterwards. And frankly, if I could, I would have a chef come to the house every single day for every single meal and cook for me and my husband. But, well, that's not in the budget. So we've got to do it anyway. So I'm always looking for someone who can make this whole process easier for me. And so if you're with me, if you just want to get a healthy meal on the table and you want it to not take so long, to make cleanup easier, all of that kind of stuff, then I think you'll really appreciate the guest that I've got on my call right now. It's Dana White. She's a registered dietitian, but she likes to cook. In fact, she's a nutrition expert for the foodnetwork.com, and she has written a number of books. I've written 6 books. My first book was called Dining Lean, and then it was Eat Out Healthy, and then it was How to Stay Healthy and Fit on the Road. And I think you get the trend. It's nothing to do with food prep. And she's written, I think, 6 books as well, right, Dana?
Yes, and I have actually 2 more coming out after this fall. So yeah, I do like to cook.
I know. Welcome, Dana. I'm so glad that somebody likes to cook, and I wish you lived nearby so you could cook for me. But I reached out to you because you have a new book that's coming out, a new cookbook that's coming out next week. What's it called?
It is called Healthy One-Pan Dinners.
Yeah, I like the idea of the one-pan dinner. And I'm very familiar with cooking on a sheet. Someone introduced me to that a long time ago, and I love roasted broccoli, roasted carrots, roasted potatoes. I like anything roasted beets. Oh, I love those. So I'm familiar with the baking sheet, but not everybody is. And then there's the crock pot, but everything is so mushy in the crock pot. And anyway, I'm just wondering if you can light us. What do you mean by one-pan cookbook?
So every recipe in this book, and you know what, first of all, it's okay if you don't like to cook. You know that, I just want you to know that. I think, and not everybody does. And I just think it's important that even if you don't like to cook, sometimes you have to, right? So
right.
It's helpful to have some really go-to, tried and true recipes on hand to make your life easier when you know someone's got to cook something, right?
Yes.
So that was kind of some of the ideas behind creating healthy one-pan dinners, was having that kind of arsenal of go-to one-pan recipes.
Do you have any numbers as to how many people would rather not prepare dinner?
I don't know, but I hear a lot of them. No, you're definitely not alone. My neighbor across the street, actually, I remember clear as day, she said to me a couple of years ago now, and our kids are in school together, and she said, something had to give, and it was dinner. And wow. and she meant it, and she was unapologetic about it. And I think that that's fine, right? I mean, I could never fathom, that's not me. That's not how I process. Something else is going to give so that I can do dinner.
Yeah.
But I realize that's not how it works for everybody.
And for me, the nutrition science, I'm a registered dietitian, but it's really about the nutrition science and how it, contributes to health and energy. And so for me, I would never scratch meals off the list. I just got to make it as easy as possible so that we can get dinner on the table for everybody and everybody will be healthy, but so I can go on to something else that I deem more important than that.
Sure. And I think then you're going to love this book, right? And that was the idea. I wanted to hold true to the one pan theme. So there's some sheet pan recipes in there for you, for sure. But then there's also recipes using a cast iron skillet, one of my favorites.
So
there's a Dutch oven.
It has to be cast iron?
Yes, I mean, the recipes were developed using a cast iron skillet. I think they're super affordable. They're a little heavy, but they're very affordable. They conduct heat beautifully. And what I really like about them, again, to kind of stick to the theme, we're using one pan. Cast iron is a nice option that I can go from stovetop to oven. And so that was kind of one of the reasons that, you know, I recommend. There's a few recipes you could probably get away with using a more traditional, you know, oven-safe skillet. But for like a deep dish pizza, for example, it's going to be so much better in the cast iron.
So we have pizza? We can have pizza?
Yes, we can have pizza, healthy pizza. So I make pizza every Friday night for my family. I've done it since I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. And so there's actually a few variations on pizza in the book. There's a sheet pan, big kind of, again, I have a family of 5, right? So we want to feed everybody with one big pizza made on a sheet pan. Or there's the deep dish in the cast iron, which is a really fun recipe too.
What are your favorite pizza toppings?
So it changes every week because we do pizza on Friday. And it's really whatever I have hanging around at that point, right? So I use it. It's a great way to use up what's in the fridge, right? So if I have leftover roasted vegetables, perhaps, or, you know, I have some kale left over from my CSA that I haven't had a chance to use yet. It's really a good way for me to kind of clean out and use what I have on hand.
Wow. Okay. So kale and roasted vegetables on your pizza.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And sometimes, you know, actually, so last week I had some barbecued chicken left over, right? So we had made that earlier during the week on the grill. So I said to my kids, let's do like a barbecued chicken pizza tonight. And they looked at me like, what? You know, what?
I like barbecued chicken pizza. So.
And I told you, and I ended up, so what I did to save myself I didn't want to have an argument. So I made like a half and half, right? So I did a, traditional pizza that I knew that they would be happy with. And then I did half barbecue chicken. And of course, they got a little, I told you so for me, that, they ended up loving the barbecue chicken and they wanted more of it. So they're pretty adventurous eaters. I'm thankful for that. And they tried it and they liked it. But again, it was a really good way to just use up what I had on hand. I had a little bit of cheddar cheese. I had a little bit of grilled chicken, and it made an awesome pizza.
Good. And what about my crock pot? Because I do pull out the crock pot every once in a while, but other than say for stews and soups, the meat just doesn't come out really good. What am I doing wrong?
Well, I don't know that you're doing anything wrong. I think you may have used the word soft or mushy earlier when you mentioned your crock pot. And you're not wrong, right? I mean, I think most recipes in that environment, it's kind of a moist cooking method. And you are going to get things that are softer. You can finish them in the oven, but then it's not one pan, right? So then we're breaking my rules. I think soups, of course. Chili is a good thing in a slow cooker. Yes. I like to make tacos though. Like I actually, there is a recipe in the book for flank steak tacos. So you take a big flank steak, a dry rub, some seasonings, throw it in there with some onions and a little bit of orange juice. And then it makes this really beautiful, taco filling that kind of falls apart, super tender. And it's a really nice way to use that cut of beef. So that's one of my favorite things to make in the slow cooker. And then I'm going to put a bunch of toppings on it, and maybe I'll put it in a crispy taco shell, for instance, and I get that kind of texture combination. So I don't feel like I'm eating, something kind of mushy.
Actually, that sounds really good. That sounds delicious, especially when you mentioned the orange juice in it. I've never used orange juice as a marinade for meat, and it sounds delicious.
Yeah, it was another. A lot of these recipes really are just a function of what I kind of have around. I cook that way. I think some people get very tied to recipes. I like to experiment And then if it works, then I'm going to turn it into a recipe. And so, yeah, I think I was like onions, and I used some cumin and some warm spices. And with the orange juice, I think it came out nicely. So it's one of my favorite recipes in the book for sure.
Okay. So I need to look at your cookbook and see what else I can do in the crock pot. So I'm not just limiting myself to soups and stews. So
correct. And there's also, there is the chapter in the book. So the book is organized by the different types of pans.
Yeah.
So there's a sheet pan chapter and a skillet chapter. So the chapter with the slow cooker is actually partially slow cooker recipes and partially pressure cooker recipes. Have you dabbled with an Instant Pot yet? Or
no, I haven't, just because I don't use my slow cooker too much, and I thought, well, who needs another piece of equipment? But my daughter has one, and she's not a big fan of it. So what is she doing wrong with that?
Well, I think I don't know that, again, I don't know that it's wrong. I think they're intimidating.
Well, she hasn't been thrilled with it, but I'm guessing she's doing the wrong things in it. Maybe there's some types of foods that do better in those pots.
One of my favorite things to make, believe it or not, in a pressure cooker is risotto. I come from an Italian family, and to not sit over the stove and stir, I was very skeptical myself to believe that it would work in a way that would be passable. It makes the most outstanding risotto, and there's really no stirring at all. And again, it's one pot. Risotto is a great one pot dish no matter what. But it's that high heat, fast pressure that allows for, you can really develop flavor in a short period of time. So risotto works really well. Ramen, my family's big on noodle bowls. We make a lot of noodle bowls, and you can make your own ramen broth, just using a few very simple ingredients. So those are some of the things that I like to make in the pressure cooker. I don't know. I mean, I think some things I don't know. I've heard some people say too, like I just made like stewed chicken in there and I wasn't impressed. But I think there's quite a few more things that you could do with both the slow cooker and an Instant Pot that maybe you just didn't think of.
Okay, we'll have to look at the cookbook and get some ideas. So you've got 3 girls. You told me they were 4, 8, and 10. And do they like to cook as well?
They do. I have a lot of fun with them in the kitchen. They are my recipe testers, along with my husband, and they're brutal. They're hard on me. They'll let me know whether they like something or not. And they like to get their hands dirty. So I'm very lucky for that. I mean, dinner time is our time. We spend it together. One of my kids, from the moment she wakes up, she's asking what's for dinner. She wants to know. So yeah, we're all pretty into it, and that's kind of how I grew up. With my family, is that we all kind of cooked together and contributed. And it seems to be happening the same way around my house. So I really
maybe that's why you like to cook. So I grew up in a family with 8 brothers and sisters. So there were 11 total. Mom and Dad both worked. So like the only vegetables we had was canned corn, canned green beans, and occasionally fresh carrots. So that was at Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that was it. Seriously, I remember going off to college to major in nutrition and going through the cafeteria line and saying, "What's that?" And the lady rolled her eyes and she said it was broccoli. And I had never seen broccoli. I'd never seen cauliflower, hadn't had a cucumber or tomato, nothing. And it's funny, a lot of my brothers and sisters to this day are still very stuck in the old way. So for me, I told you I don't like to cook, but I love eating healthy and I enjoy those types of foods. And so, my daughter and my husband frequently heard me say, "No, we can't do that. I need a real meal." So in other words, pizza would not be a real meal unless it had a vegetable. Or hamburgers would not be a real meal unless it had vegetables. And it wasn't, and maybe it started off with my nutrition training, but to me, I'm missing something if I don't have my vegetables. I love them all. So let me ask you, did you work in vegetables into every single one of your recipes? Am I going to be satisfied?
I think you're going to be. As you were saying that, I was thinking, and I think if there's not there's at least one, if not more, I would say, in every single recipe. And I think, again, if we are going to have a one pan meal, right? If this meal is going to be one stop shopping, there's going to have to be some vegetables there, right? There's actually quite a few salads in the book. There's salads as well. So, but again, I like salads that are interesting. You mentioned before about beets, right? So I love roasted beets as well.
Me too.
There's a recipe in the book for like a kale salad. So, but I use the sheet pan to roast off some beets and to make some crunchy chickpeas to go with it, because I want that salad to have texture. I really strive to make all the recipes balanced and to deliver in the nutrient department, but also in the flavor department, because that's really important to me as well.
And your husband, does he cook as well?
He does. It's funny because since we've all been home a lot more lately, and so he hasn't had as many opportunities. He always says I don't really let him cook. He's probably right.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I like to relinquish that over to him. So he's actually a very good cook, and he's been cooking a little more lately. But I do tend to do most of the cooking. But you know what? He's great. He's great because he loves to eat as well. Is to give me. He gives me inspiration, or if I'm like, okay, I know I want to put these ingredients together, like what does this need? He's usually a good resource to come up with that element that I'm looking for.
I especially like the fact that you talk about it's easy to clean. That appeals to me. Although I find that I make a lot of mess in the prep department as well. You know what I mean? So even if there's one pot, I spend so much time chopping. And I mean, do you have any quick tips on how I can not spend so much time prepping?
Sure, and I must say I did keep that in mind. A lot of the recipes in this book are things I go to on busy weeknights, and so no one has a lot of time to be doing that. So there's tips throughout every single recipe of how you can save time. And so again, and sometimes if it means maybe chopping a couple of things ahead of time. Even like, so my pizza example, you can make, sometimes on a Friday, you can make pizza ahead of time and just leave it in the fridge. So if you do have, an extra 20 minutes in the morning, and so I think even if there's just little elements that you can do to save time leading up to the meal so that you're not doing everything from start to finish in that, let's say hour before it's time to eat, I think that can have a really big impact. But I did make sure, I had a great editor on this book, and she really held me accountable that we weren't going to have recipes that, you cook it in one pan, but you made a disaster of your entire kitchen in all of the preparation. So we really did try to adhere to that. And sometimes it was a challenge. I think in the end, I ended up with that recipe where, maybe there was a dirty bowl, but that was about it. Because I really, truthfully, I don't like doing dishes either.
Oh, so when it comes to easy prep, are there convenient foods that you typically buy? Like, for example, do you buy pre-chopped onions or butternut squash or the bagged salads? I mean, where do you decide that convenience is more important than getting it whole and then preparing it? What do you think?
So I think I definitely go, for bagged, salad greens, or the ready to go things like kale. I probably chop my own onions. I use my freezer a lot, or I use a lot of, I can use frozen vegetables here and there, canned beans and things like that for sure. I also try to do big batch cooking, right? Because even something as simple as rice, right? It's just as easy to make rice for the masses or for a long period of time as it is to make one batch of it, right? So
then
I do try to install any big.
You
can cooked rice. You can absolutely. It holds up very nicely. So I freeze bread. I freeze chicken stock. If I'm gonna make it, or again, my Italian heritage, I make a lot of kind of a basic red sauce, right?
Right.
And so it's very easy for me to make a quadruple batch of that and then just store it in the freezer. Pizza dough freezes beautifully too, if you did not know.
Do you make it with whole wheat flour?
I make it with half whole wheat flour. Sometimes if you make it with all whole wheat, it's not going to work. Honestly, it doesn't have that same consistency that I personally like. I use whole wheat pastry flour actually, because it's a little bit of a finer texture. And I find that a 50-50 blend of that actually is personally my favorite.
You know what I've gotten into recently? Buckwheat flour. And I've been making oatmeal cookies recently. For some reason, I'm into the oatmeal cookies. And I always use half and half, but I've been using half buckwheat and half white. And I just love the taste of it. I made buckwheat pancakes. And do you ever cook with buckwheat, or is it just me?
That sounds amazing. You know, I haven't done with as much flour. I've done like the buckwheat noodles, like the soba noodles. I've cooked with those quite often. And I love those. And I believe they're gluten-free as well, right?
I think it was, we couldn't find whole wheat flour, and my husband, like yours, was shopping through the pandemic, and he picked up buckwheat thinking, you know, it looked whole wheat.
It's got the word wheat in it, right?
Yeah, and it was brown, you know, but so we got to experimenting with some of that. I wonder what buckwheat pizza tastes like. I don't know.
I think you might have to try it and get back to me.
I'll let you know. So we're out of time, Dana. And the name of the book again is?
Healthy One-Pan Dinners.
All right. And this has been Dana White. Dana, how can we reach you?
Very easy. DanaWhiteNutrition.com.
Sounds good. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next time. Bye, Dana.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. If you enjoyed today's Health and Sanity Call, please subscribe to the channel and share it with others. For more information about how I can help you and your organization, visit drjoe.com. That's just 4 letters, drjo.com.